Okay, this is going to be a quick review about factoring polynomials that do not have a 1 in front. So this is 11.6. I've already taught this to you guys before, but I'm going to go over it one more time because it's been a while. So polynomials take the form ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay. So let's say we got something along the lines of like 8x to the 4th power plus 16x to the 3rd minus 16x squared. So here's our example problem, and what we want to do is we want to factor this thing. Okay, so we got to do this in steps. So step 1 is, I'll type this out to save you from my awful handwriting, is you need to factor out the greatest common factor. Take out the GCF. Okay. So what does everything here have in common that we can take out? Well, this guy has an 8 and some x's. 8 also goes into 16, and this guy has some x's. And this also has an 8 that can be taken out of it and some x's. So the greatest common factor of 8, 16, and 16 is going to be 8. And since you have an x to the 4th, an x to the 3rd, and an x squared, they all have an x squared that we can take out. So what we're going to be left with in the middle is going to be 8x to the 4th divided by 8x squared just leaves us with an x squared. 16 divided by 8 is going to give us 2x. And this last term divided by 8x squared is going to give us a negative 2. Okay, so we got this factored, and now we're going to see if we can factor this polynomial. So now this is where we go to step 2. Step 2 is to identify A, B, and C. Okay. So our A value is going to equal 1, our B value will equal 2, and our C value equals negative 2. Okay. So now that we've identified these things, we're going to use X factor. So our X factor comes down like this. AC goes on top, B goes on the bottom, so on top is 1 times negative 2, which is negative 2. On the bottom is a positive 2. And let's see, the only factors of negative 2 would be negative 1 times 2 or 1 times negative 2. And neither one of those are going to work. So it looks like our final answer for this problem is just going to be 8x squared on the outside and x squared plus 2x minus 2. As good as we can get. Sorry, folks. Wish I could tell you different, but I can't. That's the best you can do. Okay. Let's do something a little bit different. Okay. And you're gonna have to give me some time. I'm trying to think of this polynomial in my head. Okay. So that's the first example. Let's do another one. Okay. Another example would be like Okay. So I'm going to do 6x to the third. Um, plus 3 x squared. Nope, not 3. Plus 9 x squared. Minus 6 x. So hopefully, if I set this up right, it'll turn out okay. Number 1, factor out the GCF. So step 1, this has a 6, a 9, and a 6. The greatest common factor of this is going to be a 3. And this has an x, this has an x, and this has an x. So the biggest thing that we can pull out is a singular x. So what gets left here inside, 6 divided by 3 is 2. X cubed divided by x is x squared. 9 divided by 3 is 3. X squared divided by x is x. And the last one, 6 divided by 3 is 2, and x divided by x just goes away. Okay. So that was step 1. Step 2 is identify A, B, and C. So A, B, C. Our A value is the number in front of x squared, so that's going to be 2. Our B value is the number in front of x, which is 3. And our last value is going to be the number by itself, which is negative 2. So step 3, extreme x factor. Okay, AC on top, B on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and do number 3 over here. So A times C, 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. I'll do 2 times negative 2. And on the bottom, B is 3. So what times what gives us a negative 4 but adds to positive 3? That seems to me like it would be a negative 1 and a 4. So now that we've used the x factor, step 4 is going to be you can do two things. You can either guess and check or use the box. So the way I would say to guess and check. The guess and check method. We know our answer is going to look like this. Parentheses, 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 okay? And you know that your very first term, I'm going to write it over here. You know that your very first term is going to have to be a 2x squared. So one of these has to be an x, the other one has to be a 2x. Our last term is a negative 2. So one of these has to be a 2, one of these has to be a 1, and we don't know which one's going to be negative. So based off of this number in the middle, this is positive, which leads me to believe that this sign over here is going to be a positive number because this term is what gets multiplied to the 2x. That's just my guess. And that means that this one should be negative. And now we got to do a little bit more thinking. 2 times 2 would give us the 4. And x times -1 would give us that -1 that we're looking for. And this would be our guess and check. Okay, so you got to make sure that you distribute this back out and see if it works. So if you distribute this out, x times 2x is 2x squared. X times -1 is -x. 2 times 2x is plus 4x. 2 times -1 is -2. And that's 2x squared plus 3x minus 2. So you can guess, and you could be wrong several times. And you could just keep changing the numbers until it works out. The way I would tell you, the most important thing is to know that these two have to multiply to equal your first term. And then these last two have to multiply to get your last term. And you just kind of play around with the order and the signs until you get it to work. There's also another way to do this, and we call this the box method. So I'm going to go down here and do the box. So the box method says, take a box. And what you do is you put these existing terms into certain places. So the first thing would be like the very first term of our equation. And remember, our equation was 2x squared plus 3x minus 2. So you take the first term in your trinomial and you put that in the top left. 2x squared. The last term goes over here. And then these numbers that you get from your extreme x factor, these guys go in these boxes. So negative x would go here, negative 1x, and a positive 4x would go here. Or you could switch the order. The order doesn't matter. Okay, but just know that those numbers, you get those numbers for a purpose. You got to put them in this little box. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is above this spot, I'm going to write the greatest common factor of 2x squared and 4x. The greatest common factor of 2 and 4 would be 2. And the greatest common factor of x squared and x would be x. On this side, on the left side, top left, I'm going to write the greatest common factor of these guys in the middle. So 2, 1, numbers aren't going to come out, but they both share an x, so x comes out. Okay. So I know 2x times something times this number in the bottom left has to equal 4x. So 2x times what equals 4x? Well, that would be a positive 2. And I know the number up here on the top right, this number times x is going to equal negative x. And that would be a negative 1. So using greatest common factor, we take this box method, we kind of reverse engineer our way out, and we get an answer of 2x minus 1 and x plus 2. Also, you cannot forget this guy. So your complete answer is going to be 3x parentheses 2x minus 1 parentheses x plus 2. I'm sorry I spent a lot of time on one big problem. Let's do one more example together, so hopefully you feel a little bit more comfortable. And I'm going to pick one off of your homework for us to do. Let's find a good one. Let's see, I'm looking at 11.6b. And let's pull out, I like number 4. Okay. So we're going to do number, no. I almost refreshed the page. Okay, here's what we want. This is 11.6b. This is on your worksheet. And this is number 4. Okay, number 4 says 6r squared minus 10r minus 24. Step 1. Step 1 was take out the greatest common factor. Step 2 was to identify A, B, and C. Step 3, use the x factor. Step 4 is use a box. Step 5, put it all together. Quite a bit of steps, but we can do this together, guys. Okay, so number 1, the GCF, the biggest number that goes into 6, 10, and 24 evenly, I think that would be a 2. So 2 parentheses 6 divided by 2 is 3r squared. 10 divided by 2 is negative 5r. And 24 divided by 2 would give us 12, negative 12. If you want to double check to make sure you did it right, you can take this 2 and distribute it to each of these terms. And if you get your original problem back, you did a good job. Okay. Step number 2. A value, B value, and C value. A in this case is going to be 3. B in this case is negative 5. C is negative 12. Because remember, it's ax squared plus bx plus c. Just in this case, we have r's. Whatever. Okay, number 3, x factor. AC goes on top, so AC. B goes on the bottom. A times C is negative 36. And B is a negative 5. And what would this be? I think this would be a 9 and a 4, with a 9 being negative. If you have trouble getting these things out, just do all the factors of 36. 36 is 1 times 36, 2 times 18, 3 times 12, 4 times 9, 6 times 6. And I just found which one has a difference of 5, and that would be these guys. So give that a try. Okay, step number 4 says use a box. Top left is going to be 3r squared. The bottom right is negative 12, the first and the last terms. And in here goes our negative 9 and our positive 4. Again, order doesn't matter. So the greatest common factor of 3r squared and negative 9, sorry, these should be x's in here, of negative 9x, they shouldn't be x's, come on Bringhetto, they should be r's. Okay, the greatest common factor of 3r squared and negative 9r would be 3r. And 3r times what gives us 3r squared? That would be an r. And 3 times what gives us negative 9? That would be a negative 3. And r times what gives us 4r? That would be a positive 4. Okay. If you're having a little bit of trouble kind of thinking about how these things multiply together, I kind of draw these little lines for myself sometimes. I draw lines like this. Okay. Because this tells me that this intersection is this guy times this guy. This intersection is the top right times the top left. This intersection is the bottom left times the top right. And if this one kept going, this intersection would be bottom left times the top left. I don't know if that helped anyone. If that confused you, just completely ignore it. So these guys will be your final factor. So step 5, put it all together. Your answer is going to be in parentheses 3r plus 4, r minus 3. And don't forget, at the very beginning of our problem, we factored out a 2 at the very beginning. So that 2 has to make his return. So our final answer is 2 parentheses 3r plus 4 parentheses r minus 3. Hooray! Okay, time for me to go to sleep. Have a good day, guys. Don't get in trouble. Get your work done. If you have any questions at all, feel free to email me. And I will see you guys on Friday. Your test for this unit is a week away. It is going to be on Wednesday, which is April 6th. So Wednesday, April 6th, that's going to be your guys' test date. Friday we'll review, Monday we'll review, Tuesday we'll review, and Wednesday, it's on you guys. Have a good one.